Thanks for tuning in to another college football special on Proline Pigskins Friday. I didn't want to say that too loud. I think I just screwed up the mic. But let's do this again. Proline Pigskins Friday on Proline TV, the Arlets Football Network. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. What we're going to do today is we are going to go over the group of five. We talked about this last week. And I am going to show you my top 10 for group of five teams. And I look forward to having a look back, obviously, towards the end of the year, as well as during the year, because we are going to update our rankings all season long. Should be a lot of fun. We'll keep you posted as far as teams that we still think are going to be relevant for the playoff spot. Out of the group of five, we'll have rankings as far as fitting that criteria. And keep your eye on the sleepers in the group of five, just like we did last week with the Power Five sleepers. Trust me, we are definitely going to finalize all of our predictions coming up within the last few weeks, not only for college football, that includes the playoffs, but also the NFL. Mark Lawrence and Jim Feist will be joining me right here on this show. And we'll be doing that at some point before the season begins. And we will go over all of our I know Mark and I, of course, will have predictions, final predictions for college football. Jim Feist would join us for predictions in the NFL. Okay, so let's go right through it. And let us now start with the number one team that I believe. And by the way, I'm going to be doing top five. The top five I'm going to have right here are all going to be from all five group of five teams, from all five group of five conferences. Matter of fact, I'm going to pop up just for my own use. And I know you guys can see this too. Well, I could share this, but just want to make sure that we don't have anything going wrong here as far as the production is concerned. So I'm just going to use this. I know you can't see this, so I'm just talking to myself. Okay. So right now, the team that I am going to post up here for the number one ranked team preseason, and this is going to represent the Sun Belt Conference, James Madison. And I really, really liked what James Madison did last year. Probably have a little bias, of course, James Madison, because they were actually one of my top underdog plays of last year. But that's just the way that's the way it really should be, shouldn't it? When you're handicapping teams during the season and they make you look good. It gets seared in your memory, and that's why we're all biased. We have our biases as far as that's concerned, and as long as those teams continue to improve upon themselves, like I believe James Madison has this offseason, that make him a better team than last season, that I think they're worth it. I really do. Look, Bob Chesney has just been a big surprise there. I'm not sure anybody expected him to be this good after what happened last year. Again, 9-win season is fine. Wasn't like they were Boise State, but they're going to be a better team this year. They had a lot of key transfers come in. Good transfers, by the way, good FCS transfers, and that's important. And what's also good is they've got a 2-quarterback team, and that's important because Alonzo Barnett is coming back. But he's going to have to, and I think there's an injury situation with Barnett right now, but I don't care about that because they added Matt Sluka, the quarterback from UNLV, who was with the Rebels until the injury, until he left. Didn't feel like he was being treated fairly at UNLV regarding NIL, and decided that that just was it for him. And so he left. And that's the last time we saw him. Now, the thing about Sluka is he's a very good athlete. He could run, do all that kind of stuff. But what he's not good at is accuracy. Very inaccurate quarterback. But he just comes up with the big plays when he needs to. At least that's what we saw in limited action last year. And I'm not saying he's going to be the starter all year. All I'm saying is even if Barnett goes down for a while, or let's say Sluka, because he's going to be reunited with his coach, because keep in mind, there was the whole deal with where he came from originally, he put up big numbers while he was at Holy Cross. And so now he's being reunited with his Holy Cross offensive coordinator at the time. So there's a lot of there's a lot of familiarity there between Sluka, Chesney, the staff, and so maybe that'll make him a better quarterback, even though he's a fine quarterback for the group of five. And again, Barnett had a big year last year. Also, keep an eye on George Pettaway. George Pettaway was a 4-star running back in college when he first came out. And in high school when he first came out to college from North Carolina. I think he's got 1,000 yards in him this year, maybe even more. That's going to be important. They go 3 deep at running back. I think they had good transfers at receiver. So I think they're going to be a solid team. I really do. I think, again, the main thing that you got to keep an eye on is whether or not those key big FCS transfers come through for them this year. The schedule also is important. Now, this is going to be the thing you got to keep an eye on is the schedule, because they do get their shot at Louisville. And I do believe that if they're going to represent number one, then they're going to have to go into Louisville, either win the game or lose the game in the final seconds or in overtime or something like that. And then they run the table, and I think that gets them into playoffs. I think that's what they're going to have to do. Now, if they beat Louisville, of course, and they lose one game, I still think they're in a great situation. The problem is, of course, Boise State's got the reputation, and their schedule is not exactly that difficult once you get past the big one against Notre Dame. But James Madison also goes to Liberty, so that's a big win for them if they can, of course, win that game. They also play Louisiana, and I have them on this list. We'll talk about them. Old Dominion, I have them on this list. So they also play a few other pretty good teams. So the schedule is tough enough for them, and I think that will be what they need in order to put themselves in this position. So let's see if they can go ahead and accomplish that. Okay, next up. This might be a little bit more of a surprise, but hey, that's what this is all about, right? South Florida. And how about this for a week 1 matchup? South Florida is going to be hosting Boise State. How about that? It's going to come in, 2 Thursdays from now? Yeah, it's the 15th now. So a week from next Thursday. So we still got a couple of weeks. They're going to host Boise State. And boy, what a great opportunity for USF. Alex Golesh is developing a nice program here at South Florida. But the reason I'm going with South Florida here is over Boise. Well, there you go. Is that I think they're at the point now where they should be able to pull off. They've got the talent now, especially because of Byron Brown. They've got the talent now to compete against the Boise State at home. And look, last year, I remember Boise going into Georgia Southern, and that was a 4-quarter football game. I'm sure a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was early in the season. And as we all know, NFL, college football, takes a while for every team to get into a groove. They're not usually at their peak until later in the season. If Georgia Southern can compete against last year's Genty Boise State team, I definitely think South Florida can pull it off this year. They follow that up with Florida on the road and Miami of Florida on the road. What a schedule for USF. But as long as they can beat Boise, they don't have to win those next 2. Just beat Boise, run the table, and there will be some tough games. At North Texas, at Memphis, at Navy, home UTSA. That's a really tough schedule, and I get it. All right, and I know I'm going a little over here, but I just think that if they can just beat Boise week 1, they're going to have a shot. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just a big fan of Byron Brown's. So I think Byron Brown is one of those quarterbacks that is really, if he's got to stay healthy, that was the deal. Banged up last year. If he can stay healthy and give them what I think we all know he can give them, if you've been following the program and you follow the quarterback's talent, he could end up one of the better quarterbacks in the entire group of 5. So they got a veteran offensive line returning. That's huge. They're better at all three units on defense. That's also going to be big. So yeah, I'm a goalish fan. He's got a veteran team, and Brown's back. Very tough schedule, and I think that's going to serve them well as long as they upset Boise State. Speaking of Boise State, yeah, I'm not gonna go too much further down the board here. So I'm sure there's already some who might think that I've gone a little wacko here with this one, but with the way we started off. But I look, this year is going to be real interesting in all of college football, in the fact that you are going to have so many programs that will have such, especially the top programs, even the top programs in the group of five like Boise, that have lost so many important players. And we're going to be relying on transfers, and we're all relying on scouting reports and, whether or not this team is better than that team just based on that, because we haven't even seen any games yet. Predicting these things are just really, really hard at this point. Oh, sorry about that. But I just think that Boise will be a strong team again. I'm not saying that they're going to, drop down a whole lot from last year. They still have their quarterback returning to them, which is very important. But you just take a player like Jeanty. I'm sorry, you just take guys like that out of your team, and it's just you can mask it all you want with, well, we're going to be better here, we're going to be better there. And you know what? If you're Ohio State or Oregon, one of those teams, Georgia, Alabama, okay. But this is Boise State. And I'm sorry, but they're just not in that class. Now, they're talking real highly about this young running back, Gaines. Okay. Nobody knows. Nobody knows if he's going to have a fantastic season at this stage of his career. Maybe he does. And if he does, okay. Maybe Boise State will end up in the playoffs once again. But we don't know, and it's doubtful that's going to happen. Look at they've lost 3 of their top 4 interior defensive linemen. They've lost 2 of their 3 starting linebackers. Their secondary wasn't all that great last year. But what really helps them out more than anything is the schedule. Again, look, with their schedule, all they have to do is, okay, you got to beat South Florida on the road. You got to beat Air Force on the road. Who else? What else would be considered a tough game? That's it. Air Force, South Florida. Okay? So if you just take care of business and you go 4-0 heading to Notre Dame, just don't get blown out. Okay? So if you play Notre Dame hard, even if you lose by 2 touchdowns, but it was competitive and it was a 4-quarter game, that rest of the season schedule is an embarrassment. The Mountain West Conference is down this year. A lot of players have left and they've gone to other programs, or Jeanty and guys like that have graduated, but that's what we're dealing with here. So that is why, if Boise can start the season 4-0 and they don't get trashed by Notre Dame, they're going to end up in the playoffs again. But we'll see if they can accomplish that, because those are not their easiest opponents. The South Florida road game and the Air Force road game. So that the first 5 games of their season, that's their entire season for Boise State. And they will have some strong players back on defense again. Don't get me wrong. They lost their top sack guy, and I think when he went to Detroit, I believe, Hassanin, very good player. But Virgin Morgan is another in the line of really good edge rushers for Boise State. They've got another solid defensive tackle that is still there. The other 3 left. He's still good. They have a solid middle linebacker. So they have a typical solid Boise team. But I believe last year's team was the special year. When you're a program like Boise, you're competing for championships every year in the Mountain West, and then every 3 or 4 years you've got that one big year that where everything comes together and maybe you have that superstar player. That was last year. The main reason why I think Boise State might get back this year is only because of the schedule. That's it. If they had a tough schedule this year, I wouldn't even come close to putting Boise State on this list, top 3. I just put them, 5 or 6 or something like that. Okay, next up. I'm going to go to the MAC now with Toledo. And Toledo, same situation as Boise State in a way. They're the king of the MAC, but even though they don't win they're not like Boise State like that. But even if you look at it, Boise State doesn't win the conference championship every year. Toledo's the same way. They don't win their conference championship every year. But when you think of the MAC, you think of Toledo, and they just win. It's just like every year they win, and they're going to win again this year. They've got their quarterback returning in Tucker Gleason, so they're in good shape there. Overall, I think, you just take a look at them where a lot of other teams in the MAC have lost a lot of players. They don't have a lot of returning starters, but Toledo actually has a pretty decent amount of returning starters. Now, I still don't think they're as good as last year. They lose their top hook, who was their best defensive back, so he's gone. They lose their top 3 linebackers. They lose their 4 starters are gone along the defensive line, including Darius Alexander, who was an early round draft pick in the NFL. So again, a matter of fact, they lost 8 starters, including their top 2, Alexander and Hook, both gone on defense. All right. And then they also ended up losing some key players overall on offense. So they lost good players on offense. They lost a lot on defense, but they're still the class of the MAC. And they have Tucker Gleason coming back at quarterback. And I think that's with the coach and the stability. And matter of fact, Toledo's coaching staff is one of the most stable coaching staffs in all of college football. And that's part of the reason why they just win every year. Schedule-wise, they open up at Kentucky. And that is one of the situations, just like last year with the upset of Mississippi State. So you can, and Kentucky is definitely fallible. So if they beat Kentucky, and I think they can definitely do that, the schedule, because the MAC is down this year, the schedule is definitely there for the taking. And even if you lose to Kentucky, that'll definitely be a close game. There's no way I see Toledo getting blown out by Kentucky. So that's going to be a game where it's going to help them either way. I just think the problem is I just can't see them getting to the playoffs because the schedule is just not good at all. Looking at the schedule, they don't have, it's hard to say, last year you had Ohio, you had a Miami of Ohio, and maybe there'll be some of those teams that'll round out into form this year, but everybody knows Ohio's down, Miami of Ohio's down, the 2 conference, the 2 conference championship teams I've just mentioned, they were both down. And so you look at the rest of the Toledo schedule and it's just, how do they not win all those games? And if they lose one of them, they're completely gone from the playoff discussion. So they have to win all of their games. And honestly, because I think the schedule is as bad as it is, they have to beat Kentucky. They can, especially since you're a MAC school. This is the MAC we're talking about. The MAC is not on par with the Sun Belt or the Mountain West or the AAC. It's just not. AAC's first. You can say what you want if you think the Sun Belt's second or the Mountain West. But the MAC is definitely, the MAC has only superiority over one conference, and that's the Conference USA, and that's it. And it was just a few years ago, the MAC used to always be perennially the last conference in college football. So they're not no Toledo this year. So not like they're loaded. So you're just not going to the playoffs unless you run the table. Obviously, that means beating Kentucky, and you're probably going to have to win convincingly in some of these games too. I said I would round out with champs from each conference or picks from each conference, and I'm going to do that with Liberty. And I have no problem doing it this way either, because I think all 5 of these teams are definitely in the mix when it comes to potentially getting a playoff spot. What I really like about Liberty is their quarterback, Ethan Vasco. I was a big fan of Vasco's when he first started out at Coastal Carolina, and he had a good year last year, so I feel good about that. Salter, boy, did he have a great year a couple of years ago when Liberty went undefeated all the way until they faced, who was it they played in the championship? Oh, they got blown out by Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. But that was a special year, and Salter was amazing. But something happened last year, and I'm not sure what it was. His play just wasn't the same. And Liberty won games, but they just weren't the same team. Look, obviously talent left. That was part of it. No question. Transfers, it got a little bit more out of hand last year for Liberty, but they still had Salter and they still won games, but he's gone now. It looks like he's probably starting at Colorado. And for Liberty, they get Vasco. So I think Vasco is, I don't think they're losing anything at quarterback because of Vasco. I think if he could develop, they can get it done. But the schedule is awful. They did not schedule any teams in the group of 4, Power 4. They just didn't. I mean, their I don't even know if they have they don't even have a Power 4 matchup. How ridiculous is that? How do you not have? And now, look, I don't know if this is just because, hear the stories about teams avoiding you and all that stuff. Power 4 teams, they don't want to do this, that, or the other thing. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe I should do a little bit more homework to find out. It'd be nice to talk to someone from the program or someone that covers the program. I've tried to do that. Haven't been able to hook that up yet, but I don't understand it. You can't develop into a real premier program in the group of 5 until you start playing Power 4 teams. So they've got no shot. None. They would have to annihilate every team they play by 3 touchdowns all season long to be given a shot. And that's just not going to happen. Tulane. All right. Now, the AAC, we talked about one of those teams already, and maybe a little bit of a surprise with South Florida. But Tulane, look, this has been a really good program now for several seasons. They had the big season. What was it? Just a couple of years ago, 2022, when they knocked off USC in the Cotton Bowl. Mensa was there to pick things up because they had the veteran quarterback at the time. Mensa comes in and everything is looking fine for Tulane. But now Mensa transfers to Duke. And so they weren't really sure what they were going to do. Brendan Sullivan, who had been a quarterback at Iowa, they had a quarterback from Ball State. They get the lucky break. Jake Retzlaff, the BYU quarterback, transfers late. Now, I don't think that it's going to be enough to put Tulane in the playoff seat, but it will be an improvement, no doubt. They had big losses. Okay, you lose Mensa, and Mensa is a better quarterback than Retzlaff. Okay, you lose Mensa, you lose Mekhi Hughes, a huge loss in their backfield. They lose their 4 starters at receiver. That's huge. And then you take a look at their defense. They lost huge talent in the secondary. They lost a couple of, matter of fact, Ransaw is an early pick, the cornerback, playing for Jacksonville now. They lost another draft pick at corner and another player who probably should have been drafted. So that was a really good secondary that is gone. Overall, once again, just like a lot of teams are talking about this year, which is why I think the sleeper role is going to be so important this year in all of college football, because the sleeper role will more than likely represent, whether you're in a group of 5 or in the Power 4, will more than likely signify things like experience and coaching and the quarterback spot. That's like, those are the top 3. Schedule definitely in there as well. I'm going to put like a 4. But if you've got a good returning quarterback, if you've got really good coaching and you've got experience, and you were like a middle of the road conference team last year, man, you are going to have a chance to surprise people this year with all of the turmoil going on with the top teams in these conferences. And this is what's happening to Tulane. Now, they're very well coached by John Sumrall. And this is the reason why I think you got to give them a shot, because they have the coach. They've got a decent quarterback. And the thing about Retzlaff, just keep in mind, Retzlaff is not an NFL quarterback. Retzlaff is a really good college quarterback. And usually what that represents is his quarterbacks that sort of like one of my favorites, Pavia from Vanderbilt, we talked about last week. He's one of these kids, tough kid, Retzlaff, can come up with the big plays at the big moment. The pressure just doesn't, it's like he thrives on it. And that is what helped BYU last year. And we'll see if it can help Tulane this year. So, but he is really going to have to play even better than he did last year if Tulane is going to have a chance, because of the losses Tulane had. With their schedule, they do host a couple of decent competitive games with Northwestern at home and Duke at home. Okay, so, and that's before they go to Mississippi. So that is a really good non-conference slate. 3 out of those 4 good matchups. That'll help him out as far as any sort of debate on if they played anyone. As far as in the conference, they have to go to Texas San Antonio. They have to go to Memphis. They also play Army at home. So the schedule, a lot of people believe Texas San Antonio and Memphis are the top 2 teams in the AAC, or at least that's how, as far as Vegas is concerned. With group, but they're not playing Navy. But UTSA and Memphis are considered like, they're all like top 4, and Army's like top 5. All right, and they do have to play 3 of them. They don't get Navy though, and they don't get South Florida. So the schedule is good. It's tough, but it's not overly tough. They're definitely going to be competing. I would keep an eye on them, no doubt. I like Sumrall. I think Retzlaff's a tough kid, but I just think they lost too much. Okay. Let's go to the Sun Belt. And Old Dominion. And I've kind of been waiting for Old Dominion. Ronnie has done a really good job there, the former Penn State coach. I've kind of been waiting for the big year out of Old Dominion. And I think this is going to be it. This is my guess. This is the year that they just break out and have a really strong season. Because if you look at it, Ronnie is in his 6th year, and 3 of the last 4 years, he's had 5 or 6 wins. He had a 3-win season. So, they just have been okay. They just have not taken that next step. We've seen good development out of them from time to time. We've seen them compete from time to time, but they just haven't been able to take that next step. I believe they're going to do that this year. Okay. And what I like about it is I like the fact that they bring Colton Joseph back, who was a young quarterback who had a really good first season. Okay. So they bring him back. Now they do have some issues at the skill position. The top 7 skill position players are gone. All right. And I get that. But the offensive line's better. Again, your quarterback has improved. And that is their question mark. That is the weakness of the team, the skill position. But I do think in all of football, the easiest positions to replace are positions. Okay. The other ones are the most difficult. And this is why I think Old Dominion's got a shot. Their linebacking crew is probably the best in all of Group of 5. All right. Jason Henderson has got a good shot in the NFL. This guy put up freaking amazing stats a couple of years before he had a big ACL injury. But he returns to a linebacker unit that returns 3 of their top 4 tacklers. And then you throw Henderson in there. That is a major linebacker room. So their defense is going to be really strong. You add, good coach, better quarterback play, 2nd year of experience. And keep this in mind. The Monarchs lost 6 games last year by 8 or less and had 2 upsets last year as 10-point dogs. They upset Texas State and Bowling Green on the road. And we all know that both of those teams, Texas State and Bowling Green, had good seasons. So I think they're ready. The schedule is tough early, non-conference. They go at Indiana, at Virginia Tech, and then they host Liberty. And if they have it, and as far as the rest of the schedule goes, at James Madison. But they've got look, they're not a playoff type team though. They're not at that level. But I do think they're in a good position here at 7. That says I believe that early on they'll be able to pull off a couple of upsets. Whether it's and I'm not going to say who it is, but again, you've got Indiana, Virginia Tech, Liberty, and James Madison. And I think they could go 2-4 in those games. I mean, 2-2 in those 4. Next up, Navy. And what a big year it was. Everybody knows for Navy last year. They went on a really great run to start the season, undefeated, took on Notre Dame and got their ass kicked. And for the rest of the season, they just weren't the same. But it was still a very good season for Navy. And now we take a look at him this year, and they bring back Blake Horvath at quarterback. That is big. So Blake Horvath returns, and he is one of the better college quarterbacks in the group of 5. They also have a good running game. Okay. They bring back their top rusher. They have a couple of guys that, and also, by the way, their passing game, and that they have been a little bit more dual as far as balance in the passing game, not just running the ball all the time like Army, even though Army has tried a little bit of that as well. But Navy has shown that they can throw the ball a little bit. And they've got a really promising tight end in Cody Howard. The offensive line is what you need to keep an eye on. But there is some possibility there. So if the offensive line steps up and stays healthy, that's important. They got to stay healthy. If they can stay healthy and it steps up, the offense could be really good. Defensively, 5 of the top 6 defensive linemen return. They do lose their top 2 linebackers and their top 3 defensive backs. Okay, so there is some concern there. Schedule says they should open up. I'd be surprised if they don't open up 4-0. And they do get Air Force at home, even though that doesn't mean anything with the academies. So let's say, so you know what? They have a really good chance, just like last year, to start off undefeated. They could start off 7-0 before they go to North Texas. And if they can win against Air Force and at North Texas, they can play Notre Dame once again undefeated. The problem Navy has is the back end of their schedule. They end in the last 5 games, all games they could lose. At North Texas, at Notre Dame, at Memphis, the Army game, and home against South Florida. So I think they're a good team. They've got the quarterback returning, as I mentioned. There's talent returning, but that schedule late is really, really hard. San Jose State, we go back to the Mountain West. Many people believe San Jose State might be Boise State's, top competition, and they might be. And I'm going to wrap up this video by quickly, like I did last week, with the additional teams as far as my sleepers in the Power 4. I ran by them kind of quickly. I'm going to do the same thing for the sleepers, not as fast as I did last week's, because that was a little bit more a different type of format. But there are several, matter of fact, 4 teams that I have rated right now out of the 10 in my sleeper group of 5 category from the Mountain West. So I do believe that there would be teams that have that chance to take another step up. I don't know whether or not any of those teams have a chance to win the conference, because even though Boise State has lost, some big talent, there's just no one here in the conference that is just close right now. It's just not. And that's just the way that it is. I mean, UNLV, I know there's people who think that, hey, Dan Mullen's at UNLV. I mean, that's going to be awesome, right? Maybe it will be. But you're talking about losing players. I mean, they got it's like a new team. And that was the main competition for Boise State the last couple of years. But San Jose State, they put up a fight against Boise State last year when they had them at home. ultimately losing by 21. But the game, I believe, was like 21-21 or something. So they were battling them hard. A lot of it had to do with the quarterback now, Walter Eget, excuse me. And he had a huge game. Like his career game was against Boise State. So that's confident, and that'll give him confidence, to be the full-time starter this year. They were supposed to rebuild last year. Didn't happen. Navy's a longtime head coach, came over to San Jose State and did a really solid job in year one. So now they're even better than what they were last year. Matter of fact, defensively, they should have a good front seven, a very good front seven, by the way. And they don't have to play Boise State as far as the schedule is concerned. They do have Texas in week 2. They will play Stanford in late September on the road. As far as the schedule, once we get into the conference, it is really wide open. The toughest game, the two toughest games they're going to have on their conference slate, more than likely, will both be at home. Hawaii and Air Force. And then number 10, and you've seen him there just a little while ago, was Louisiana. Now, Louisiana in the Sun Belt is another one of these teams. Once again, it's a broken record. I'm sorry, but they're going to kind of. I think they might win their division in the Sun Belt by default. There just is not a lot of competition that they have to deal with in that division. The big thing about Louisiana this year is going to be the addition of Walker Howard, a 4-star quarterback recruit from Ole Miss. And anytime you can get a hold of an SEC 4-star quarterback, you're in good shape if you're in the Sun Belt. And they've got a couple other guys too at quarterback. So it's actually, from what I hear, it's a 3-man battle for the job. But you kind of feel Walker Howard will get that gig. He's just head above talent wise, and I'd just be shocked if he didn't. They're gonna have a good running game, but they have to replace their top 4 receivers, and they also have to replace 3 starters on the offensive line. They lose 3 starters, including their star linebacker at that position at linebacker. So there are some big losses. They're a good team, but they did have to lose a veteran quarterback last year. They bring in Howard. Nobody knows how he's going to play. Nobody. Just because he's a 4-star from the SEC does not automatically give him the right to be a superstar in the Sun Belt. So I do think Louisiana, though, talent-wise, because the rest of the division just is not very good, is going to give them a chance to kind of win the division. And probably, I don't know if they would deserve it or not, because I think there are probably 3 or 4 teams in the other division that are better than they are. Schedule-wise, they're at Missouri, and that's their only really tough test as far as the non-conference games. In conference, they're at James Madison. In conference, they're at James Madison. And unfortunately, that's about it. The other tough one is the game against Texas State. Now, there are a lot of people who might say, well, why do you say the rest of the division isn't very good? A lot of people like Texas State. I don't know. They just lost so much talent. I don't know. I can't be that guy. Now, we all understand that G.J. Kinney has done a really good job there a couple of years. Okay. Completely get it. I understand that. They really weren't a very good team for a while. He comes there, boom, boom, 8 wins. And now everybody thinks they're just going to have 8 wins again. Maybe because of the rest of the conference is down, that could happen. And because of the division they're in, schedule-wise, they really only have 2 tough games, James Madison and Louisiana. So they can, eat up a bunch of other conference games and actually probably win a couple of games non-conference that aren't very tough. But they are at Texas San Antonio and at Arizona State. I think last year's team could have had a much better go at it. Keep this in mind, too. How funny is this? Last year, they hosted Arizona State in week 3 and were the favored. Imagine that, how far things have gone since that time. Anyway, Arizona State wound up beating them. It was a close game. They also blew out Texas San Antonio, and that one's on the road. So revenge is on the minds in that one of the Roadrunners. So I just think that there's just too many losses you lost. And here's the biggest one of all is McLeod. You see, Kinney he's able to bring in the transfer quarterback, and it made things a lot easier. And McLeod was a major part of what this team did. He is gone. And they just do not have a quarterback right now that I'm looking at that I am excited about. That could change. I totally get it. These are young kids, but I don't see it. I just don't. Especially when you're going from McLeod. They lost top quarterback running back who transferred. They lost their top 3 wide receivers. They lost 3 starters along the offensive line, keeping in mind that they have a new offensive coordinator. Defensively, they are not as experienced on the defensive line, the linebacking, or the secondary. 2 returning. Matter of fact, they have 5 returning starters from their team last year. 5. I mean, what is GJ Kinney? Is he some sort of I don't know? Is he like the next Power 4 superstar coach? Because if he was, I guess he'd be there. Look, he did a really good job, but I think they're getting overblown with Texas State. Maybe a lot of it has to do too with Texas State being this Pac-12 team. Remember, they just got the granted the Pac-12 membership, and I understand that, and I think that's really a smart deal for Pac-12 because they're able to bring in the Texas audience and the Texas recruiting, and I think that's going to make Texas State better. And I like Kinney, but I don't. I'll say this: if Texas State ends up winning this division and competing for a Sun Belt championship, I don't see how GJ Kinney's here in 2026 because that would be such an amazing job that he would have to be gobbled up by a top program in the FBS. I'm not saying that he can't eventually be that guy, but I'd be surprised if it happened coming up this season. All right. Now, as I promised, I'm going to run through my top sleepers in the group of 5. Let's see. I tell you what, why don't let's just go by, I'm going to go by conference. Let's start first of all in the AAC, and I'm going to start with North Texas. I've got 2 teams from the AAC. One is North Texas, Eric Morris. I think he's right there in my opinion. He's a little bit behind Kinney, but I do think he's in the same mold. It's third year. I think it's time now for North Texas to take that next step. They've been doing it too slowly so far. There was more expected of them last year, but I think the offense has a lot of potential this year because they have 2 really good quarterbacks battling it out, including a kid that put up tremendous numbers at Albany in the FCS. And he was with Miami last year as the backup, never needed to, of course, play when you had Cam Ward. So I think that North Texas is going to be just fine at quarterback. This is his best team, Eric Morris. They also bring in a new defensive coordinator who is the defensive coordinator at Sam Houston State, or Sam Houston. And that was a really good defense. Matter of fact, Sam Houston had the 22nd ranked total. They were 22nd ranked in total defense last year, 13th in pass defense. That is a major upgrade on the defensive side of the ball. This is a Texas team. You know they have talent there. And again, I think the quarterback position is going to be an upgrade. So I think North Texas deserves to be a sleeper team in the AAC. Another team I'm going to have as a sleeper. I'm not going to say they're a sleeper to win the division of the conference, but I think they're a sleeper to be a, maybe they can get to like the top 5 or 6 in the AAC. And that is, we just talked about Sam Houston. Well, that's KC Keeler and the Temple Owls. KC Keeler is just a winning coach. That's all he is. He had a great run at Delaware, winning a national title for the FCS in 2013. He had a great run at Sam Houston, as we know, winning the FCS title in 2021. So now he's going to Temple. And I think he is going to do just fine there. Matter of fact, I think Temple made a little bit of progress last year. I know the records don't say it. They've only won 3 games for 4 straight years, but they were a little bit more competitive last year, and some of that had to do with the fact that they had a nice upgraded quarterback in Evan Simon, the Rutgers recruit. Now, Simon is battling with Giovanni McCoy, who was with Idaho, and he's going to get the opportunity, either quarterback, meaning that either whoever plays, whether it's McCoy or Simon, Temple's going to be in fine shape, especially for Temple. They're going to have decent quarterback play, and I like that. I think the running back room is going to be better. Jay Ducker is there, and Jay Ducker actually had a really good season for Northern Illinois just a few years ago. I believe it was a 1,000-yard season. He was with Sam Houston last year. And then I think their offensive line should be better. So yes, overall, and the defense will be better because of the coaching. The defensive coordinator, as I mentioned, comes over. Excuse me, I shouldn't say, I've already said that. That was with North Texas. But their defensive coordinator comes over from Rice, and the Rice defense actually was pretty decent the last few seasons. So I think that's an upgrade. So the coaching staff is upgraded. You've got good quarterback play. And I think Temple is going to be one of those teams that you want to keep an eye on that will be fighting for a bowl this year. And I think they have a chance to get it. Taking a look at their schedule, they do have tough games. They have, matter of fact, 5 of them that they'll probably need to pull off an upset somewhere. But they do play Charlotte, Tulsa, East Carolina, Howard, and UMass. And if you win all 5 of those games, and I think I'm going to call it right now, I'm going to say they will, then they just got to pull off one upset. And I think they could do that. So I think Temple could be a bowl team this year. So those are my 2 sleepers for the AAC. Now, as I promised, the Mountain West Conference, I have 4 sleepers from the Mountain West, starting with Air Force. And Air Force, Troy Calhoun, the bottom line is he is the dean of coaching in the Mountain West. They had a down year last year. He does not have back-to-back down years. Now, a quarterback does need to emerge, but they do have this kid, Zark, who put up some really big numbers in high school. And if he could pick up where Quentin Hayes left off. Now, remember, Air Force, and I am starting to see some people that are starting to realize that Air Force might be a better team this year than people think, because they are remembering what happened at the end of last year. They're not looking at the schedule. They're doing a little homework, and they're seeing exactly what happened those last 4 games. When they won the last 4 games of the season, they started to develop. The quarterback, Hayes, took over, and everything went well. Hayes is gone, unfortunately. But like I said, if this kid who put up some big numbers in high school can do the job for Air Force, I think they're going to be fine, because they've got a good running game, and they also have a better offensive line, and more important, Air Force's defense is going to be very strong again. Last year it was disappointing, and that should not be surprising. They were like elite in 2023. Last year a little bit down. They lost some talent, but they're back again. They have one of the better nose guards in all of the Mountain West, in Zadorek. They are really strong up front. And this is going to be a strong Air Force defense. So that quarterback position is key. If the quarterback can, and look, this is what happens at Air Force, Navy, and Army. Anytime one of those programs can get a hold of a really good quarterback, that's when they're at their best. And you can just look at it all through history. It's very rare that a service academy will have one of their top, special quarterbacks at the program. But the defense stunk and it was just wasted. It just doesn't work that way in these academies for whatever reason. The timing, it just seems to be perfect. Whenever the quarterback, they find that guy. And one of these days I'll be able to go through a list of him. But we just saw last year with Army, when they have that guy, that special guy, that's when they have a special season. But I just don't know whether or not they've got not just a special guy, but just a guy even like Quentin Hayes. We'll find out early in the season. I think at Bucknell, So, and trust me, I know it's just Bucknell, but we'll find out even maybe a little bit in the Bucknell game. But we'll definitely find out at Utah State before they host Boise State. And if they can find quarterback play, and they say to themselves, hey, or we say, hey, they've got themselves a quarterback, that is going to be a competitive game at home against Boise. They're also, of course, against Navy and Army. And then the schedule is not bad. A couple of other tough games at UNLV and at Connecticut. Oh, and at San Jose State too. So there are some tough games on the schedule, but I think Air Force is a legitimate Mountain West Conference championship sleeper. Another team I believe is a championship sleeper is Hawaii. And that is because, and look, it's not a lot of games, and I get that, but this kid, Alahado at quarterback, looked tremendous in his very limited action last year. He had one start, but he looked awesome. And there's a lot of talk that it was the real deal. All right. So if they've got themselves their quarterback, if Timmy Jang has his quarterback, it's the perfect year. It's his fourth year. They were better last year, but now this is his best team. All right. So they've got better talent, obviously now at quarterback, at wide receiver, at the offensive line position. And even more importantly, or just as important, Dennis Thurman. That is an NFL coach they have on the defensive side. He is a really good defensive coordinator. Their defense is going to be a lot better. They have a really good linebacking crew. And I think this is going to be a really good year for Hawaii. The last time they went bowling was 2021. They're definitely going bowling again this year. They haven't won a bowl game since 2020. They're going to have the opportunity to win one again this year. So look out for Hawaii. A couple of other teams in the Mountain West that are sleepers, but I'm not going to put them in the label of championship caliber, but that's Wyoming and Nevada. And I'm big on Wyoming because of the quarterback, Caden Anderson. Now, Caden's got to stay healthy. Injuries have definitely been an issue for him. He had a couple of serious knee injuries in high school, and maybe that had something to do with the reason why he wasn't recruited at even a bigger program, because the kid had a really nice high school career, because he was injured there a couple times, but he had a really nice high school career at a program in Texas that is considered one of the top high school football programs in the state and definitely in the country. And that is big. And you're talking about a kid that's 6'4", 220. That is like the prototypical quarterback size. He's got a lot of tools that you do not see very often at Wyoming. I said this a few weeks ago on another show, and I'll say it several times more, including if he keeps playing well. He is by far the best quarterback Wyoming has had since Josh Allen. He is not Josh Allen, okay? So I don't want anybody going there. But it is a big boost at Wyoming to get a quarterback like this, because this is usually like a defensive team that runs the football. Well, now they can pass the football, and that's going to make him even better. Their offensive line is better. And matter of fact, they've got a lot of experience coming back all over the offense. So I think that works out for Wyoming because you can usually count on them to play good defense, even though they have limited starters. I get that. But anyway, I think Wyoming is going to be a sleeper in the Mountain West, thanks to Caden Anderson, and also a team that is, I think, stabilized pretty well. It's only been a year. This is going to be the second year. Bowl is gone, but it looks like Jay Saul might be the right guy. You know, a little bit unsure about it. 3 wins, not the way you want to kick things off with your tenure. But I think that Wyoming, I think this year is going to prove whether or not Jay's the right guy. And as long as Caden's healthy, I think he's going to do just that. And then Nevada is going to be the other sleeper. And Jeff Choate is in his second year. And one of the reasons is they've got a quarterback by the name of Chubba Purdy. And Chubba Purdy, Brock's little brother, has had tons of injuries. He's completely healthy right now. He's going to have his last go at it in the college career at Nevada. And that's going to be a big uplift for Nevada. And they needed it because they lost their quarterback who transferred out. And so it's not like I think this could be a major improvement. Brandon Lewis was a fine quarterback at Nevada, but the major reason why I think Nevada, besides having a talented quarterback, is going to be better is because of their coaching. Again, I think Choate is a really good coach. This is a coach that did a really, surprising job in college at FCS, Montana State. Went to the playoffs a few times. Got the job as a co-defensive coordinator at Texas. And I just like him. I think he's a good coach. I think last year they were in a lot of games. They had that, great way to kick off the season against SMU. They lost by 5 at home against SMU as a 27-point dog. And then at the end of the season, and really, if you look at it, out of their 6 losses last year, they were 3-10 team. Out of the 6 losses last year, they had 6 of all 6 of those. Actually, how many? 6 of the 10 were by 7 or less. All right, so they were very close in a lot of those games, which is a good sign heading to year 2. So and they have an easier schedule. All right, throw that on there too. They do have to play Boise State at home, but the rest of their conference schedule, I think, is manageable, and even their non-conference schedule is manageable. So they have 2 games where you just say, okay, you're going to lose those games: Penn State and Boise. That's it. So I think Nevada is a team that I can see them going bowling this year. I really can. And so keep an eye on Nevada to maybe pull off a couple of surprises this year. Let's now move over to the Sun Belt Conference. And how many do we have? We only have, 1 in the MAC, 1 in the Sun Belt, and 2 in the Conference USA left. So 1 more in the Conference USA, in the Sun Belt, and that is going to be Louisiana Monroe. Louisiana Monroe, coached by Bryant Vincent, another head coach in his second year. And Bryant Vincent did a tremendous job last year. He got this UNLM team to 5-1. Keeping in mind, they had not been to a bowl since 2012 and have never won a bowl game. They've been to 1 bowl in the FBS history of ULM Warhawks. He gets them to 5-1. 6 times they had a chance to get to a bowl. They lost all 6. The good thing is that they've got a decent amount of players coming back from that team. They've got mostly all of their receivers coming back. They have their quarterback returning. Their defensive line is going to be strong. And again, you're taking a look at a team that did things last year that nobody thought they could do. And that is, most people thought they'd be a 2-win team. And they came that close to being a bowl team. That's going to make him even better this year. And so I'm going to keep an eye on ULM. The only blotch I have is the loss of Ahmad Hardy. I talked about that last week. I think that was a huge loss because I'm a big Ahmad Hardy fan. He was tremendous for them last year, but he's gone now at running back. I think he's with Missouri. So, we'll be following his career for sure. But I think ULM is a nice little sleeper. And again, the other reason is because this division is just not very strong in my mind. Texas State is considered the second best team in this division. And I just went over how much talent they lost. So I think the entire division is completely up for grabs outside of Louisiana. And that will take us now to the MAC. And we have 1 team from the MAC. And this is going to be Central Michigan. All right. So Central Michigan has got a new coach. It wasn't like they needed to move on or fire anybody because they had a pretty, their coach was doing a pretty decent job. But it was time to move on. I think he had some health issues. And so the job opened up. And this is a Central Michigan team that probably didn't need to kind of move on anyway, because the last 3 years they've been kind of stagnant, 4 or 5 win team. So who pops in? First time head coach, Matt Drinkall. And who's Matt Drinkall? Well, Matt Drinkall was the offensive line coach at Army last year and had been there for 6 years. And he was the man that led one of the best offensive lines in college football last year at Army. We all know Army had a tremendous year. But what I like about the move to Drinkall is he comes from Army. He's a disciplinarian. And here at Central Michigan, they are in a good situation because really, like I said, the program had in a way been stabilized where things were going well behind the scenes, and it was a nice program. They just weren't able to get the result on the field. That was the big deal. McElwain, who had some success in the FBS, had moved down to Central Michigan, but it just didn't work out wins wise, and that's what it's all about. But like I said, he wasn't fired. He just needed to move on. And so I think they get a nice coach here. And I think this is the type of situation the program needs. They get a little jolt of energy from a new coach. And I think that's going to be big. Joey Labas comes back, a quarterback. I think in the MAC, I think he's going to be just fine. I don't know where his ceiling is, but I think there's potential there. They did lose a lot in their running back room, in the receiver room, and I completely get that. So that's something they're going to have to figure out. But again, if you have a quarterback, you have looks like to be a good coaching staff and a good defense. They have a good linebacking crew. And overall, I think they have enough returning players on defense to be much improved on that side of the ball. So I think Central Michigan will be a nice little sleeper team in the MAC to keep an eye on. They also have an easier schedule than last year. That's going to help them out. And also one of the things that hurt them last year, they were a very banged up, injured team. And so anytime you see these teams coming back from injury that really decimated their chances, those are the teams you want to keep an eye on. That might be nice to kind of bounce back. I think Central Michigan's one of those teams. And now we're going to wrap it all up with two teams from the Conference USA, the worst conference in the land. And we're going to start with Middle Tennessee State. And I believe they're predicted, I think, the fourth team in the Sun Belt. No, worse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, seventh team in the Sun Belt. They're 15-1 to win the Sun Belt. Actually, the Sun Belt, the Conference USA. They used to be in the Sun Belt. Derek Mason, former Vandy coach, is in his second year at Middle Tennessee State. I like the fact that they have a multi-year starter at quarterback. I think that's going to be good. Their running back, I think, is going to who played last year as a freshman. I think he's somebody that you need to keep an eye on. I think they're getting better at linebacker. The defensive line is strong. They don't have to play Louisiana Tech or Liberty on their schedule. And those are considered the two of the top teams in the Conference USA. So I think Derek Mason is going to start building something. I think he's already in the process of rebuilding Middle Tennessee, and I think this is going to be a nice, good step for him this season. So keep an eye on Middle Tennessee as a sleeper just for a bowl. I don't really consider them at this point to be a little bit more than that. Even though the Conference USA is not very strong, I just don't know if I can put them on par. Maybe they can get to the championship game. That's possible because I'm not. Look, I like Louisiana Tech. I think there's some things to like about Western Kentucky. I think Louisiana Tech, though, is more than likely the team, though, that will end up playing Liberty in the championship game. I do think there is a difference between Liberty, Louisiana Tech, and the rest of the conference. But I think just getting into a bowl is all Middle Tennessee State wants. And the final team that we're going to talk about here is UTEP, coming from, again, the Conference USA. And UTEP has, you guessed it, second-year head coach Scotty Walden. Very good coach. Walden took over an Austin Peay team at a very young age, just 26 years old when he took over the program. He built them up from nothing to a contender. So he gets the job at UTEP. Again, being Texas, there's a lot to recruit there. He did a really good job recruiting already. He's got the team in much better shape in his second season. How about this? Who does he have a quarterback? But, and again, I don't want to butcher his name because sometimes it's Malachi and sometimes it's Malachi, but I'm pretty sure it's Malachi Nelson from where? USC via Boise State. But he just has not had a problem. Actually, he just hasn't had a chance, really. He came out of high school injured, and that put him behind the 8 ball at USC, and decided to transfer. He goes to Boise. Everybody expected him to win the job last year. He didn't win the job. And so he decides to leave once again, because why would you stay there? They got a quarterback there that beats you out. Why would you stay on the bench for the next 2 or 3 years? So he transfers here to UTEP. I don't think there's any doubt he'll win the job. And so that's a big get for Scotty Walden. And this is also important. The Miners ended last year with a 3-2 record against Conference USA teams, with both losses by 7 or less. Now, remember, they were a 3-9 team that went 3-9 in 2023. So it's easy to look at those 2 years and go, well, this is just a bad program. Why would they be a sleeper? Well, again, I gave you a few reasons. There's enough returning talent as well. So that's good compared to a lot of other teams who have a lot more players that have not returned. So that's a plus. Again, good coach. He's got a new coordinator on both sides of the ball. So there is that, but I think those are improvements. He's got a 5-star quarterback there who was projected, 3 years ago to be one of the top quarterback prospects in all of college football. So, hey, maybe there's still a chance for Nelson to be that type of kid. He just has to be given an opportunity to start all year. And it's UTEP we're talking about. Okay. This is not the Power Four. So I think UTEP is another sleeper to keep an eye on in the group of 5. And that is going to wrap it up here for our group of 5 discussion. And again, with the top teams I talked about being the top 5 in all conferences: James Madison, South Florida, Boise State, Toledo, and Liberty. And out of those 5, I think the only teams that really have a chance of getting to the playoffs would be Boise State, South Florida, and James Madison. I still think Tulane is a team that needs to be looked at. UTSA, I just don't think they have enough defense. That's why I did not put them in my top 10. I think their offense is going to be really good, but I just don't see enough talent on defense. Other than that, the AAC is definitely better than the rest. So keep an eye there. I can't put Memphis in there either. I just can't do it. They just lost so much talent. I'm not about to say that they're just capable of just rebuilding just that quickly and being top of the conference. Now, look, maybe I'm going to be completely wrong about all this when it's all said and done. And it will not matter anymore when all of these top teams in the Power Four and the group of 5 lose all of their players. As long as they bring in new transfer players, it's just not going to matter. Okay. And I'll find out if I'm wrong next year. But I still think it matters when I'm not necessarily saying that those teams need to be discounted, but I think there has to be some sort of regression, and then there has to be some sort of competition. I'm not saying that they should be knocked out of their perch just because they lost talent, but as long as there are other teams that are making that next move that have, like I said, experience, quarterback, coach, maybe even the schedule, then I think those are the teams that you want to be keeping an eye on that might be able to make things a lot more interesting in all of these conferences in college football and give college football even more parity than they've ever had. So next week, maybe again, this is all depending if I'm going solo again, which is a possibility. It might be my last solo show here on Friday. And if I'm going solo again next week, what I will be doing is doing predictions on the Power Four, final Power Four predictions. So we'll go over the top 4, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, and ACC. And I'm sure within a couple of weeks, Mark and Jim will join me. And then we're going to start getting into it here in a few weeks, including final predictions. We'll get predictions from Jim and Mark, and we'll get ourselves ready for week 1 in college football, week 2 even. And don't forget on Playbook, the ATS podcast show, next Thursday, when we talk NFC, we talked AFC a couple of days ago. When we talk NFC next week, we're also going to talk about any of those week 0 games in college football, including the only one that really matters, which is the one in Ireland. between Kansas State and Iowa State. And then the week after that, that's when it really kicks off. Week 1 in college football, we'll have tons of talk on week 1 games, and we'll be doing that all week long on all of our shows, all sorts of different games. Won't be the same ones. I trust you. Trust me. That's why you want to subscribe to the channel, because we're going to give you a variety of handicappers, a variety of analysts, and a variety of games to talk about every week, all season long, college football and the NFL. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week, and I'll see you again next Friday.